Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome the members of council, staff, and the public to our Tuesday, May 24th council meeting and call this meeting to order. I'd like to call upon Mrs. Pearson for the disclaimer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And that is that council members, staff, guests, and members of the public are advised that the Council of the Town of Petrolia meetings are being video and audio recorded and will be posted on the Town of Petrolia's YouTube, along with the official written minutes on our website. As such, comments and opinions expressed may be published, and any comments expressed by individual council members, guests, and the public are their own and do not represent the opinions or comments of the Town of Petrolia as a whole and/or the Council of the Town of Petrolia. The recorded video of the full council meeting is not considered the official record of that meeting. The official record of the council meeting shall consist solely of the minutes approved by the Council of the Town of Petrolia.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. And at this time, I'd like to call upon Mrs. Pearson for the roll call, please.
Councillor Dighton. Councillor Field sends his regrets. He had an unfortunate work detainment, so he won't be present with us this evening. Councillor O'Hara.
Present.
Councillor Purdy.
Present.
Councillor Such.
Present.
Councillor Welton.
Present.
Mayor Loosely.
Present.
And we have a quorum, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. At this time, I'd like to ask council to declare a conflict of interest now or at the appropriate time on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. I'll ask for a motion to put that on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Dighton, seconded by Councillor Welton. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to adopt as presented May 24th, 2022, regular meeting of council agenda.
Any questions from council? All those in favor of that motion before you? Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to consideration of our minutes of a previous meeting of council held on May the 9th, 2022. I'll ask for a motion to put those minutes on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Sutton, seconded by Councillor O'Hara. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to adopt as circulated minutes of the regular meeting of council held on May 9th, 2022.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. Any questions, additions, or errors for those minutes? If not, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving those minutes? Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. And also we have minutes. We have 2 minutes of the public meeting. I'll deal with them separately. The first one is a public information meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment and an official plan amendment, M1 63709 in May 2022. I'll ask for a move and a seconder to put those minutes on the floor for discussion, please. Okay, moved by Councillor Purdy, seconded by Councillor Welton. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is that the Council of the Town of Petrolia approved the minute notes from the May 9th, 2022 public information session for the zoning bylaw amendment and official plan application submitted by M1637.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. And that basically is the development off of Discovery. Any questions regarding those minutes before you? If not, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving those minutes? Opposed? That motion carries. We also have the minutes of a zoning bylaw amendment for Petrolia Sky Estates on May the 9th. I'll ask for a move and a second to put that on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Dighton, seconded by Councillor Such. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is the Council of the Town of Petrolia approved the minute notes from the May 9th, 2022 public information session for zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by Petrolia Sky Estates.
And that's over by Forest Street. Any discussion regarding those minutes, errors or omissions? If not, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving those minutes? Opposed? That motion carries. That moves us on to our inspirational message. And tonight we have Councillor O'Hara. So Councillor O'Hara, go ahead.
Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts.
Well done. Thank you, Councillor O'Hara. That'll bring us now to number 7, which is the roundtable announcements. Remember, the announcements, we'll be doing the committee meetings directly following this. And tonight we're going to start with Councillor Welton, please.
Nothing at this time, Your Worship.
Thank you. Counselor Dayton.
Nothing at this time, Your Worship.
Thank you. Counselor O'Hara.
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you. Counselor Such. Counselor Purdy.
Nothing at this time.
And of course, Counselor Fields not here. Well, I do have a little bit here, but I was pretty quick. I want to congratulate Blue Water Chief of Staff, Dr. Michael Haddad, recognized for his leadership, capabilities, knowledge, and skills to influence change in Canada's healthcare system. The doctor was one of 16 across Canada awarded the Canadian Certified Physician Executive Credential. And I want to thank the doctor for making Petrolia and surrounding area proud. I attended the shareholders meeting with Blue Water Power on Thursday, May the 12th, and received good news on another very successful year and brought back a check in the amount of $133,000, which is our share. I also attended a committee meeting of County Council on Wednesday, May the 18th, and will continue to keep council informed. And that's all I have at this time. That'll move us now to the update from appointed councillor representatives and draft committee minutes. First on our list is the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, and the committee members is Councillor Wade Dighton and Councillor Don Welton. Which one of you gentlemen would like to start? Okay, thank you. Councillor Welton.
Nothing at this time, Your Worship.
Okay, I would like, then we do have the minutes of the advisory committee meeting held on May the 4th. I would like a move and a second to put those minutes on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Purdy, seconded by Councillor Dighton. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the council of the town of Petrolia to endorse as presented committee minutes of the May 4th, 2022 Petrolia Parks and Recreation Committee meeting.
Any discussion regarding those minutes? If not, all those in favor of approving those minutes? Opposed? That motion carries. That moves us on to the Petrolia Heritage Advisory Committee. We have Councillor Joel Field, who is not present here tonight. That leaves Councillor Marty Sutz. Councillor Sutz, the floor is yours.
We've got a grant in progress for working on ongoing projects that we've also had a member who has been with us for 22 years. He's done over the past year. We also have a presentation that
Thank you through your worship.
Go ahead.
Okay. It is an update on the policy for the vacant and underutilized buildings in the downtown and our intent to work closely with our building owners to try to bring some of them up to date and up to speed. And through Heritage, we were just asking for some support as far as facade improvements go and that sort of thing.
Thank you, Mrs. Ellsworth. I think that's great news. And I want to just echo on with Councillor Sutz too. I think Marty Dillon's been involved with that Heritage Committee. I've worked with him close. He's been the chairperson. He's been very, very involved and an asset to that committee. So I certainly want to thank Mr. Dillon for his involvement. We do have a motion on the floor regarding the minutes of the Heritage Advisory Committee. Can I have a move and a second to put that on the floor for discussion? Moved by Councillor Sutz, seconded by Councillor Welton. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the council of the town of Petrolia to endorse as presented committee minutes of the May 4th, 2022 Petrolia Heritage Advisory Committee meeting, and that council accept with regret the resignation of member Martin Dillon, and that the clerk be provided direction to amend the appointment bylaw to reflect this membership change.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. Any questions regarding those minutes? If not, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving those minutes? Opposed? That motion carries. That brings us to the Petrolia 150th Anniversary Advisory Committee and members are Councillor Ross O'Hara and Councillor Marty Sutz. And which one of you gentlemen would like to lead this off? Councillor Sutz, go ahead.
the 150th anniversary committee, we still got some great things in the works. We're still looking to put some more things together. Start getting down that fighting path. New resignation. things are happening. And, keeping that direction, they work into that.
Go ahead, Mrs. Ellsworth.
Thank you through you, your worship. Yes, we had a few things happen and Councillor Such is correct. We accepted 2 resignations that we were sad to accept, but we understand totally. And then we are looking at the opportunity for us to become a committee that works directly underneath community services, as we find that we are leaning quite heavily on them for events organization and things anyway. The reporting to council will only change that we'll be a part of those minutes and our motions would come out of there. And we just have to change our meeting night if that's approved by all of you, as well as we're having trouble with our youngest member, our student member, making the Wednesdays. So I would say that's about the update.
Thank you, Mrs. Ellsworth. And we do have a motion that I'd like to ask council to put on the floor for discussion regarding the minutes. So I'll need a mover to second to put that on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Purdy, seconded by Councillor Such. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to endorse as presented committee meeting minutes of the May 12th, 2022 Petrolia 150th Anniversary Advisory Committee, and that council accept with regret the resignation of members Leanne Menzies and Courtney Hind, and that the clerk be provided direction to amend the appointment bylaw to reflect this membership change, and that council approve the dissolution of the Petrolia 150th Anniversary Committee as an advisory committee to council, and that the Petrolia 150th Anniversary Committee operate as a subcommittee of the Petrolia Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, with the Petrolia 150th Anniversary Committee Chair attending and reporting updates when required to the Petrolia Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. I also agree. I think that's a great idea. Any discussion from council regarding that motion before you? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll bring us to correspondence. We have correspondence A to C. I'll ask for a motion to receive and file those, and or unless council wishes to pull something out separately for discussion. So I'll ask for a motion to put that on the floor. Moved by Councillor Welton, seconded by Councillor Dighton. And I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for correspondence items 9A through C to be received and filed.
Any discussion regarding correspondence? If not, okay, all those in favor of approving that motion? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll bring us to correspondence for consideration motion. We do not have any. For delegations and presentations, we are really lucky tonight to have some Green Leader Program recipients and check presentation. And I'll call upon, first of all, Mr. Dave Menzies, just to give us a brief report. And then I'm going to introduce Louisa from Waste Management later. So, Mr. Menzies, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, reading your program as part of waste management to encourage the development local community engagement and environmental solutions that build a sustainable community. That's one of them.
You can say that, and I agree with that. Thank you. Do you want to, Mr. Menzies, take the one of these one at a time, and we'll explain the projects? Good, thank you.
Worship will go on to the presentation. We'll ask yourself and Lisa from Waste Management to step forward. We'll do these one at a time. We'll ask that you come forward when record. We'll get some pictures and then that. So we'll get right to it. The first grant, outdoor gardens, compost stations, and element are planned to be part of a larger project. The funds requested will be used to create 5 garden boxes, creating a composting station in the schoolyard, in addition to the purchase of the necessary tools to tend to all these young new gardeners, receiving $5,000. It's a Hillcrest Public School Council. Congratulations and come forward.
very much. For pictures at the end, I'm sure the rest of will post them. Personal use that school. So this next project, reforestation, has a big impact on enhancing this natural site. It will not only benefit the area, but it will reduce greenhouse gas emissions and welcome native trees back to a previously cleared property. Receiving $2,500 for the special North Street Cemetery project, the Petrolia Heritage Advisory Committee. This next project is from a service organization. From one of our service groups is to erect a shed and a spot for gardeners to store the garden tools and provide a watering system, as well as a new compost facility for the site. All part of being a greener community, receiving $5,000 Petrolia Rotary Club for the community garden project. And last but not least, this local organization is planning to enhance the natural area of Granview Park by adding a nature trail so that it can be part of a preservation of the area and participate in tree planting, again, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This organization will also encourage the trail to be a learning opportunity for all school-age children, receiving $2,500 for the beautification of trails in Brisbane Park project, IODE, Margaret Stokes Jack.
I'd like to congratulate all the winners. I want to congratulate those that applied that maybe didn't obtain any money. I want to thank Waste Management, Lisa, for doing this over the last few years. It's great for this community. And I think we should only congratulate. Thank you. Yeah, I want to thank Mrs. Ellsworth and Mr. Menzies for this and all those that came. So moving on, we have the community announcements and recognition and awards. And I'd like to ask for a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Purdy, seconded by Councillor Welton. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to receive as information only the May 24th, 2022 community announcements as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. Mrs. Ellsworth, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just a reminder of the grand opening of the farmer's market this Saturday. So we'll see you there anytime after 7:30.
Thank you, Mrs. Ellsworth. I will be there and I hope everyone here comes. I think that'll be great. All right.
Yes, Your Worship.
All right, I'll call the vote.
Your Worship, if I may, please reminder the IODE butter tarts. We can read Pat's sign language, so the IOD butter tarts.
Boy, I'd be really in trouble if I missed that too. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that'll be great. And thank you for the ladies in IODE for putting all that on. All right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving that motion? Opposed? That motion carries. This now brings us to the first opportunity for anyone wishing to address council. And I'll ask you to come forward now
I
and
do have
state.
two registrants, your worship.
Okay,
The first registrant is Ms. Laura Steckley.
okay. Would you like to come forward, please?
Lori Steckley, 448 4th Street. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. It appeared to most of us as we were leaving last time we discussed the zone change, that the council seemed less than enthusiastic about the meeting. We didn't feel like we were heard well. Discussions outside, we were very disappointed. Nobody seemed totally into it. And it's very important to us that we be heard. It is, sorry, I don't know how grandeur your homes are, but you chose them because you like them and because you like the neighborhoods. Well, our homes on 4th Street are chosen by the same token. They're not grand. We chose them because we liked our houses and we liked our neighborhoods. We chose them because that's where we wanted to start our families. We wanted to raise our families. We wanted to retire in a neighborhood that's comfortable and that we comfortably fit into. And that's 4th Street. Now you want to change this. Councillor Souch, when you go home tonight, look at your house and the houses around it. Would you have voted for this change in this zoning for your neighborhood around your house? Councillor Dayton, when you go home, look at your house. Do you have the right, have a sight line between your neighboring houses and you? If you do, that's great. But would you have voted for this with this zone change? Because then you lose your sight line. Sorry, councillors, I'm nervous. Councillor O'Hara, I ask you a similar question. Look at the view from your back door and the windows of your house. Now take away that view. Replace it with all the way from the left to the right with a solid row of 2-story buildings. Would you have voted for this zone change? Mr. Mayor, look at your house when you go home. Look at your neighborhood, how you chose your house and why you chose your house. Does your house back onto a neighbor's house that is so close that you can smell their barbecue? Would you have chosen this for your neighborhood and for your home? Councillor Welton, you too, look at your home, look at your neighborhood, review as to why you moved there, why you chose that home. You know what your property is worth, what your house value is worth. Now add a major townhouse community and complex at your back door. Now think about your property and your home worth. Would you have chosen this zone change for your home, your neighborhood, your family? Councillor Purdy, same question for you. Assuming your neighborhood is as nice as ours on 4th Street and having townhouses rising up behind you with no guarantee that this will not be or become geared to income property, would you have voted this zone change? Something to think about. We don't want a Petrolia looking like little Toronto suburb. To those requesting this zone change, right or wrong, I suspect you have very nice homes. You're builders after all. Would you have voted for this zone change if it were requested for the area around your own house and your own property? My guess is that if all of you answered completely honestly, all of you would probably have voted a resounding no. Not in my backyard. So why then are you possibly voting yes to make this change in our neighborhood? If this change is not final at this point, I respectfully request that you reconsider. Think about it. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention, I want to thank you and council, we appreciate your feedback, but I do want to say council does take these developments very serious. And I also want to state tonight, we're only dealing with the zoning bylaw only. There's no plan of subdivision here. That will be dealt with at a later date. So tonight we are dealing only with the zoning change. That's all. I just want to make that clear. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, who's next?
Miss Allison Mavis.
Okay. Please come forward.
I was also at that meeting and I spoke at that meeting. So I just want to clarify some things because there was an article written in the Independent after that meeting and I was featured in the article. I actually live in a 2-story house. In the article, it incorrectly said that I live in a 1-story. Most of the houses are on 4th Street are a 1-story. I happen to live in a 2-story. So I just wanted to make that correction. Nowhere in my letter did I say I was in a 1-story. It was an accident, but I've been spoken to about it in the grocery store. So I wanted to make sure I corrected that. I also want to clarify that I'm not against having a development. I bought my property knowing full well there would be a development at some point behind me. I am against the change that is being made, simply as that. And I'm also not against townhouses in general, which I was accused of. And I was also accused of thinking that people who live in townhouses are lesser people. Don't think so. I lived in one for almost 10 years of my life. I have no issue with townhouses in general. I just don't want them in my backyard because that's not what the plan was. The concern I have is at the May 9th meeting, from my understanding, we were going to get an email with some answers to our questions. Was that the understanding of other people did too? I've received no email. Did anyone receive an email? No. So that was my understanding. And my biggest concern remains the drainage issues. So after the May 9th meeting, we went into the parking lot and myself and several other people were talking and the developer from Petrolia Sky Estates was very kind and he joined our conversation and the drainage issues were brought up. And his exact words was that he is responsible for the drainage from his properties. Okay. So if he's only responsible for the drainage from his properties, what about ours? How is the drainage from our properties going to be corrected? How is it going to be improved? And I'm going to again repeat that I attended the meeting where the master drainage plan was presented. And I've read through the report again, and it's not in the report, but that night, it was very clearly stated that that drainage plan was based upon the fact that there would be single dwelling homes built in the area behind us, which on your own master drainage plan shows as having the most drainage issues. And the reason that it was going to be single homes was to allow for airflow and for sunlight to assist in the drainage. What is the effect on the master drainage plan when this area will now be filled with more homes, more parking spaces, and more roads than what was intended on the drainage plan? I am requesting that council delay approval for the bylaw change until the company, which I believe is BM Ross, responsible for the master drainage plan, can be consulted as to the effects of these bylaw changes on the development plans. As a resident and a taxpayer who's paid taxes for a decade and a half, I would like the opportunity to hear from this company regarding these new development plans, the effects on the drainage plans, and I would like the opportunity to ask questions as to the effects of the drainage on my property. Will this council invite the company responsible for the master drainage plan back to make adjustments concerning the massive increase in homes proposed in this area? Will the correct information on the drainage plan be addressed? Because that night, myself and several others said it's not shown properly and it was supposed to be corrected and it was not. What assurances do existing residents have that the current drainage issues will be resolved and no new issues will be created? Why is this proposal specifically in the area that has the most drainage issues? Will the town commit to being responsible for any further drainage issues for current residents if this plan does not work? What if this massive quantity of townhouses negatively affects all us taxpayers that have paid taxes for decades? Who do we turn to? Who is responsible? Prior to any bylaw approval, I'm requesting answers to my questions about the drainage issues. What will be done to fix them? Who will be responsible for fixing them? And who would be responsible should this massive build cause issues to current homeowners? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to address council? I'll ask one more time. Anyone else wishing to address council at this time? If not, we will move on. Thank you for coming. We'll go on to the financial accounts report. We have a report from the Town Petrolia Finance Department. And I have a motion on the floor regarding the accounts. I'll ask for a move and a seconder to put that on the floor for discussion. I need a moved by Councillor O'Hara, seconded by Councillor Dayton. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is the Council of the Town of Petrolia receive as information only the April 19th, 2022 to May 9th, 2022 financial accounts as circulated.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. Councillor O'Hara, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving those accounts? Opposed? That motion carries. And we also have a motion regarding the report from Mr. Rob Nesbitt, and it's regarding the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment of M1367 and zoning bylaw amendment of Petrolia Skies Estates. I'll ask for a move and a second to put that on the floor for approval, please. Moved by Councillor Dayton, seconded by Councillor Welton. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to receive and file the senior plan of reports regarding official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment of MI 367 and the zoning bylaw amendment of Petrolia Sky Estates.
Thank you. And that again is for Forest Street development over by Discovery. Any discussion regarding those report? Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Worship. So we're not voting on this yet?
We are voting on the report from the planner. Yes. On both of those, on approving his report.
But not the actual amendment. That comes at the end, correct?
Yeah, the zoning bylaw and official plan, that's at the end on our bylaws.
Okay.
And that'll be open for discussion at that time. Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving those reports? Opposed? That motion carries. We have nothing in closed camera. This is the second opportunity for the public to address council. And again, I'll ask, is anyone willing or wishing to address council at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to unfinished business. You have two items. One is the tabled item from council April the 13th from a regular meeting regarding the Lambton Group Police Service Board. And that has been tabled. If you wish to bring that onto the floor, you'll need a motion to have it lifted from the table. If not, it'll remain. And then the second one, if council wishes to leave that, the second one, I'll call upon Mrs. Pearson to give a verbal report, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. I wasn't sure if anyone was raising from the table or not. Just wanted to be sure. Okay, so the verbal report is in regard to the Integrity Commissioner's report. The Integrity Commissioner has been in touch with us from Arid and Bearless. They've had a small delay in the construction of the report. It was due to an illness, so they are going to be attending on June the 13th to present that report to council. So they expressed their regret for their delay, but it will be coming on June 13th.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. Okay, moving on to the bylaws. We have bylaws. I'll ask for a motion to have the bylaws read a first and second time. And there's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And of course, we'll have it read on the third one. So I'll ask for a motion to read them a first and second time. I'll need a move and a second. Moved by Councillor Dayton. I need a seconder. Seconded by Councillor O'Hara. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, and we'll move on now to the bylaws to be read a third time, finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, and then I'll have that motion read. I'll need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Counselor Dayton, seconded by Counselor O'Hara. Any discussion from council? Counselor Purdy, go ahead.
I'd like to pull the 103, 106 separately to discuss.
That's the second bylaw. Okay, you want to deal with that separately for third reading? We can do that.
Yeah, that's the Sky Estates one.
That's just the second one regarding the Petrolia Skies Estates. Is that correct? Okay, so
Your
I'll
worship,
ask.
that would be the first bylaw, 21.
Okay,
Petrolia
20,
Sky
yeah.
Estates is 21 of 2022.
Correct, thank you. So we're going to deal with the second, third, fourth, and fifth, sixth. So that's from 22, 2022 to 25, 2022. We'll deal with them first. So I'll need a mover to,
I just need a seconder for the motion
Okay.
from Counselor Purdy.
Counselor Dayton. And I'll ask the clerk to read those bylaws, please.
And that is for bylaw number 22 of 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia to amend bylaw 63 of 2017, MI 637, be read a third time and finally passed. That bylaw number 23 of 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia regarding official plan amendment number 7, MI 637, be read a third time and finally passed. And that bylaw number 24 of 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia to confirm the resolutions and motions of the council of the town of Petrolia, which were adopted up to and including May 24th, 2022, be read a third time and finally passed. And that bylaw number 25 of 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia to set the 2022 tax ratios and provide the final tax levy for the year 2022, the payment of such taxes and for penalty of interest of 1.25%, be read a third time and finally passed.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. Any discussion from council regarding those bylaws? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving those bylaws a third time, finally pass, sign, seal the number. Opposed? That motion carries. So now we'll deal with bylaw number 121 of 2022. And again, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor to deal with separately. Moved by Counselor Purdy, seconded by Counselor Such. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the council, or I'm sorry, that is for bylaw number 21 of 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia to amend bylaw 63 of 2017 regarding Petrolia Sky Estates, be read a third time and finally passed.
Okay, I'll open that up for discussion. Counselor Purdy, go ahead.
Thank you, worship. I've been thinking about this one. I do believe that the drainage is an important issue. I know it's really bad there. And I think, in the end, if it does pass, I think we have to make sure we do everything right. And I feel if we pass this right now, then it does pave the way for things to go through. So I really would like to see a motion similar to what Ms. Mevison said.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Purdy. Counselor Such, go ahead.
I'd like to agree with Councilor Purdy that it was of the president. And is it possible that the people who made the master plan come back, and let's be clear and get all the answers that's there and then make a decision from there, because I'm well aware there is some drainage issues there, and I think, in all due respect to the residents, that those questions should be answered before we make a decision going forward.
Thank you, Counselor Such. And I just want to state, though, I'm hoping with the construction of the road in the next couple of years will help with a lot of that drainage. Counselor Dayton, go ahead.
Thank you, worship. Okay, so going forward today is changing this from R1 to R1-4, allowing multiple dwelling homes instead of a single. The plan of subdivision and the master drainage plan do we have to go back and build a new master drainage plan based on that before we go forward? Or is that before we apply for or before the builder applies for the building subdivision? I'm looking for direction here from staff or
You can
yourself.
clarify if you like, your worship.
I'm going to ask Mr. Charlebois. Do you want to answer that, please?
Certainly, your worship, I'll do my best. My understanding at the draft plan of subdivision, drainage is one of the key aspects, and that'll all be sorted out for development. And as was mentioned by somebody, everybody, not just developers, they're accountable for any drainage that happens on their property. And the idea there is if I take care of my drainage, then it doesn't drain on to my neighbors, which is the key concern of people in the neighborhood.
Councillor
Yeah.
Dayton, go ahead.
We actually, as part of the subdivision agreements that come after draft plan of subdivision, so 2 steps from now, there's a schedule that has to be submitted. That is a drainage plan that has to be approved prior to it being presented to council.
So that will deal with all the drainage issues. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Dayton.
Okay, good, just so I understand it and going forward. We went through this with the Kingswell Golf Course with their subdivision that was around it. And we had the master subdivision, master drainage plan that was developed with that. So I just wanted to make sure that it does get addressed. I mean, I do agree. I'm not saying that it shouldn't. I want to make sure that we're putting it in the right place and are we getting the cart before the horse? I think as a go forward, we should definitely be looking at that. So.
Thank you, Councillor Dayton. Any other discussion? Councillor Welton, go ahead.
Yeah. The new storm sewers they're putting in when they do the construction on the street there. Will that help these folks with the drainage, or do we have to or when the development comes and we ask for? I guess what I'm trying to say is, I want some kind of security that these people are going to get drainage.
Right.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and that's my understanding. I think the road may help, but the drainage still will have to be dealt with when we get to the draft plan or our plan of subdivision. That has to be dealt with before we'll approve that. And I can assure you that. Councillor O'Hara.
Yeah, when the development does happen, of course, you have to take care of any stormwater on your property for sure. And I think a lot of the problems with these people is the water coming off the field behind them. So that's going to be dealt with, obviously. Now, if it's just you've got low spots in your yard that collect water, that's basically your problem too. I have it certainly in my yard. I have a low spot in my backyard every spring that floods, but that's not anybody else's problem but mine. But I think what will really help is the fact that there will be no water coming off the field.
Thank you, Councillor O'Hara. Any other councillor? Okay, Mr. Charlebois, go ahead.
Thank you, worship. I was just going to ask that we get the notes from the people that spoke tonight, just so we can pass those to our planner. And as was mentioned, it's part of the normal process that the drainage gets addressed as we go through the next couple of steps in the process. But if we can have your copy of your notes, we can make sure our planner has them all.
Yeah, I think council certainly is aware of that, of the concerns. Actually, you're not. I'm sorry. We're done the first and second opportunity. All right. Any other discussion from council? You have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of approving that motion? You can. Mrs. Pearson, would you read that motion again, please?
Certainly. So the motion on the floor is that bylaw number 21 of 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia to amend bylaw 63 of 2017, Petrolia Sky Estates, be read a third time and finally passed.
Any other discussion? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving that bylaw? Opposed? Oh, sorry, approved? Put your hand up. All those in favor of approving? 1, 2. Opposed? That motion is not carried. That'll bring us to our adjournment. I'll ask for a move and a second to adjourn the meeting, please. I need a motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Dayton, seconded by Councillor Purdy. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and that is for the May 24th, 2022 meeting of the Council of the Town of Petrolia be adjourned to the next regular scheduled meeting of council to be held on Monday, June 13th, 2022, or to call of the chair.
All those in favor of adjournment? Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Have a good night.